But before I come to another question about media in your life, I would like to bring in Sumit there for just a while, where he wanted to ask you something very particular. And we have got questions for you, especially on the issue of Kashmir, because you're so popular that when we asked people to send in, they did. So Sumit, if you can come around with your question now, or we can move ahead. Yeah,
Sure.
we can hear.
So, Aditya, again, coming from Kashmir, you have many memories from Kashmir, but the region has been into news more for bad things, and we can say that disturbing things than good things. So there are both sides to the story. So I will start from a historically important 370 abrogation. First of all, your view as a journalist who has been covering it from long time, and as a Kashmiri Pandit, has your hopes have your hopes now been raised? Will you be going back ever? You think that? What's your view as a journalist as well as a Kashmiri Pandit on this application of Article 370?
It's a very difficult question. Perhaps my views would be a little different as a journalist and as a Kashmiri Pandit. But, before, a few hours before coming to this podcast, I was watching this amazingly great film, The Trial of the Chicago 7. And I'm not sure if you've seen it, you should. And there was a dialogue that came in where Abby Hoffman says that, I'm suffering, or, I'm being challenged because of what I think, because of my thinking. So this will take a little time to process. So I think in a similar way, although, I've not been tried in a court of law, but in 1990, immediately after I was born, I met exile. I've stayed in a refugee camp. I've stayed in a garage before coming to Delhi. And that has also shaped my thinking. I won't say that, it doesn't. When you lose your ancestral home forever, when you don't have that opportunity to live that childhood again in the same village or in the same town, in the same ancestral house as your parents, your grandparents, it does shape your thinking. If you see your parents suffer and struggle in a particular room, when we shifted to Delhi, a room without windows, it does shape your thinking to a great extent. And I think it did shape my thinking about Kashmir, about what Kashmiri Pandits went through. And on 370, as a journalist, also, I feel that it was absolutely discriminatory, because once you go through it, once you read through the article and go through it, you see the kind of discrimination it did. And not just against the Valmikis or the Dalits. I will tell you this story very briefly, that Dalits from Punjab were brought in many decades ago for sweeping or municipality related jobs to Jammu and Kashmir. And as per law, as per 370 and 35A, their son, their kin, could only apply for sweeping or municipality jobs in the government and no other job. This was as per rule. Now, India of 2019, at that particular time, believed in this discrimination. If this was happening in any other part of the world, or even any other part of India, there would have been, almost riot-like situation that what are you doing to the Dalits and Valmikis? Now, just because it was Jammu and Kashmir, nobody bothered about it. In fact, not many people, I believe, even know about it. Even women. I mean, if you marry somebody else outside Jammu and Kashmir, you lose the property right. Isn't this discriminatory? I mean, what about those who speak about
feminism? That's a very big,
equal opportunities? Second is
there is worse than an honor killing happening in any of those.
Absolutely. Similarly, West Pakistan refugees, others who used to be there, got second-class treatment in Jammu and Kashmir for years. 370 and 35A only became a tool for some political parties to benefit over the years, to indulge in corruption, to in fact give this whole, candy of autonomy and self-determination to the people. In reality, there were only two families who benefited, and look at their, bank accounts or the money that they have earned without doing a job in the last 50 years. The kind of crores that they have earned is horrific. So as a journalist, I very much believe that 370 going was right. And I will not, yes, I believe that the internet connection, disconnection that happened was absolutely wrong. The government was challenged in the Supreme Court of India. The Supreme Court should have taken action earlier. I do believe that terrorism is a huge concern, but internet is essential. You can't just, take away internet connection.
The larger purpose was much more beneficial for the society than just looking at the technical.
Absolutely. So 370, 35A, if you speak to the common people, they are okay with it. Just if you engage in the larger detail, they wouldn't know because nobody has told them what 370 or 35A really is. I was in Pulwama on the 8th or 9th of August last year because somebody advised me, why did you go to Pulwama where the Pulwama attack took place in Lethpura, where 40 Jawans of CRPF were killed? I went to that village, I went to that masjid nearby, and I engaged with the Maulvi Saab there. And I told him that, what do you think about 370 and 35A? He said, no, मैं अपनी जान दे दूंगा, लेकिन 370 और 35A के लिए कुछ भी करूंगा वापस लाने के लिए. I said, ठीक है. I said, ठीक है, आप करेंगे, लेकिन क्या, आपको क्या लगता है, आपसे क्या ले लिया गया है? And he said that हमारी नौकरियां चली जाएंगी. I said, क्या नौकरियां आपके गांव में हैं? He said, हमारे जो है सीमेंट की फैक्ट्रियां हैं और ब्रिक क्लिन्स हैं हमारे पास. I said, कितनी है? ये 4 है. I said, तो आपको लगता है दिल्ली से या मध्य प्रदेश से या पंजाब से कोई बंदा आपके गांव में आके नौकरी ले जाएगा? यहाँ पर तो लोग मार रहे हैं, आतंकवाद हो रहा है. He said, नहीं, मुझे आपसे डिस्कशन ही नहीं करना, इसमें डिबेट में ही नहीं पढ़ना, but I will.
It's a stubbornness. It's a illogical stubbornness.
This kind of narrative happens in in every village, in every mosque, in every school. Radicalization is happening. The government is not doing anything about it, and this is a vicious circle. So I believe the 370 and 35A going was right, even though as a Kashmiri Pandit, it didn't change my life at all. As a Kashmiri Pandit, I'm still in exile. I've still lost my home. The killers, including Yasin Malik, Betta Karate and others, are still, they're in prison, thankfully, but they've still not been charged. 30 years. It's been 30 years now. And Yasin Malik, who killed 4, IAF officers, unarmed IAF officers, he has not been convicted. 30 years, a special CBI court has not been able to convict him. Bitta Karate, who confessed on killing 24 Kashmiri Pandits, hasn't really suffered enough. And anyway, so, that's that. And I believe that, while it's an emotional issue for me, but there has been biased reportage in Kashmir for years together. And I have seen that biased reportage up close because I was an activist as well. And prominent TV channels used to ban me only because, I had a certain point of view which was aggressively against terrorism and separatism. There was a particular news channel and a particular anchor, I won't name and I won't discuss, who really thinks that he or she is, in fact, a Kashmir expert. And the same person had banned Vinod Mehta, one of the most prominent editors, just because he had a certain, news article or a cover page in the Outlook magazine. Vinod Mehta in his book, The Lucknow Boy, wrote, if I remember correctly, that, integrity is like virginity. You can lose it only once. So that says a lot about the state of Indian media. Again, as a journalist, I never believed that a journalist should become a story, ever. Even though, in my past, I've faced defamation cases from, Congress, from BJP, from PDP, from different political parties. Again, intimidation again. I've been punched by politicians again from Congress, BJP, and others for questioning them. But again, I believe that the reporters should not become a story. We should focus on the story. And a reporter still can do magic. I mean, a reporter can change the direction of the story or, change lives. We've seen that happening during the migrant crisis a lot. Yes. But I believe that, people in the studios really need to go out and, feel the air, because the kind of madness that we've seen recently in the Indian media, and again, not a particular channel, not a particular editor, but all of them. And people can question me as well. I mean, you were also on television. I blame myself as well. I mean, I'm not shirking away from responsibility. I blame myself. I will, guilty as charged and hold me responsible as well.
I never saw your shows going on shouting on anybody. I think you were more discussing issues than bringing on charges on anyone, is how we experience it. And there, towards the end, I want to ask this, Aditya, since your journey has been so unique and inspiring. I love the anecdotes that you shared, really. It really meant a lot. Going further, what do you think is now, since you could see through media some years back, how do you see media further? What should be the right path ahead? We are getting digital, but we're going to play it everywhere. You can't just limit it to one space. So what is your look into the media going further from here?
Media, as I said, is changing a lot globally. But a lot of emphasis on digital media, a lot of emphasis on citizen, reporters. Everybody is a journalist today, in a way.
Everyone
I
can
wouldn't
put it.
want that, or you wouldn't want that everybody turns into a journalist. But let's face it, everybody uploads a video and becomes a journalist. You know how a journalist has to narrate things. We have these funny videos sometimes where kids are holding a camera and shooting around and speaking like a journalist. So the digitization, the kind of social media influence has changed things, and this will change things further in the years ahead. So I think we need to be prepared for it. The focus of Indian media, because Indian media is still at a very nascent stage. There's a huge churning that's still happening, will happen years from now. We need to learn a lot. We need to imbibe a lot of lessons, but the basic tenets. Some people may say that why am I trying to exaggerate or perhaps speak out these old notions time and again, about conviction of courage, about integrity, which I again and again emphasize. It's important. I mean, I've seen journalists, who've spoken truth to power and finally changed again years later and became, subservient to the same power.
Yes.
I've seen journalists again who on television have been very vocal against a particular government, but won't speak against a particular government just because their views do
Very
not
clearly polarized, basically.
polarize. So I think journalists need to realize that independence of journalists is what matters. Integrity is what matters, and that needs to be there. I mean, the kind of uh, people from all professions trying to be anchors or trying to be, journalists is not going to help us. I mean, this would be good for entertainment. If some TV channels want to call themselves entertainment channels, great, but that's not journalism. You have to, if you are speaking against the opposition, you have to show the mirror to the government as well. And I've been very critical sometimes of the government. The migrant crisis was horrific,
Yes.
and it should have been handled very differently. In fact, what was done a month later should have been done earlier. Sadly, I do hope that we learn lessons out of it and change that. But I think media, uh, many changes need to happen. As I said, sometimes I'm very disturbed, and I do hope that I was born in a different era altogether. And sometimes when I watch these old movies like the Trial of Chicago 7, I do hope, I do wish that I was a print journalist in maybe 60s or 70s, and perhaps we had a better life back then. Who knows?
Glad you said that, Aditya. We're glad that you were born in this era because we met you, and especially I have been lucky to have you in a co-space to say so. But before I let you skip out, we have really pulled you through because you talk so calmly. I have to give it to you. I've never spoken to you in my life, but this is the most calm and soothing session for anyone I've spoken to. No one can say you're a journalist who's worked in Times Now. I will never let anyone believe with the kind of tone you have. But before I let you skip out, one fun thing I want to ask you is in the last few months, even though you were on the field doing all that you do every day, what was that change in your life that has come by with the pandemic? This has really touched upon everyone. So, what has touched Aditya? So many turns have happened in your life. The pandemic, what turned around?
What has changed? Not much. I think I'm only glad that I haven't got COVID till now and I'm home. But, I used to stay in Delhi for the last 27 years, and I just moved to Noida in the last 2 months. So that's a huge change for me personally because, as a person who, lost his home in the very first year of my birth, then had a tough life for the next 4 or 5 years, and we moved to Delhi, shifted houses frequently till in the first 5 years. This was a huge change because I stayed in a very comfortable place, very green and clean place because of my mother who was working in the government. Thankfully, she got that job in the early 90s, and she retired, and we had to change. So that was a huge turn for me. Also, I love traveling, just like that during the video days, I was traveling all the time, and I'm not somebody who could sit at one place. So that's why, during the migrant crisis, I traveled. Recently, I went to Ladakh as well for a week when the skirmish happened. So I just cannot, sit at one place. I'm so glad that just before the pandemic, I was on a fellowship in US for a month or so. So just when I came back, the pandemic happened. and I just thanked my stars that at least I could, do that 1 month trip, which was great.
And then
Like
you had to stay at one place.
I
And your
had
favorite two books, Aditya, if you have to tell us before you go, which are your two favorite books if you're reading something now?
two favorite books. Well, there are quite a few actually. I don't know if I can
If you
mention
have to
just.
single it out, like something
Uh,
two that you have to.
So
Tell us.
one, because it's based very close to my own story of Kashmir and Kashmiri Pundits. My friend Rahul Pandita, he's written this book called Our Moon is Blood Clots. So I
Okay.
think that is very close to my heart, and something again very similar, but happened in a very different era, the Holocaust, is Elie Wiesel. The Night, Day and Dawn book, that
Yes.
the trilogy. Uh, uh, Very painful, very painful. I've read it a couple of times.
Oh my God.
And, yeah, so I think these are the two books that I would
And the
always.
last thing, what eases Aditya before when he takes his peace of mind, staying anywhere in the war zone or something? What is that way of skipping out when you're doing your reporting also? That calming thing for you that calms you down or keeps you like off getting carried away?
Well, I listen to music to
Yeah,
calm me
while
down.
on your journey also?
Yeah, I listen to music almost always. Old songs, mix of songs, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, that keeps me sane, basically. Either when I'm driving. In fact, also not just music, but if I'm just alone, because usually it happens when you're in television studios or reporting or elsewhere, your phones are always buzzing, and uh, so that particular moment, maybe 15 minutes or 20 minutes that I'm just alone somewhere. So I have this habit, a very bad habit sometimes, that whenever I drive home from office, I stay in the car for 15, 20 minutes once I park the car. Because I don't know, I just find that time very peaceful, because there's nobody in the parking and you can just be yourself. So you can just either meditate or go through your phone or whatever. But those 15, 20 minutes are something that really help me.
Want to catch you on your parking lot and disturb you whenever we see you getting in. Thank you so much, Aditya. We have taken a lot of your time, but sorry we could not help this time. We really enjoyed your conversation. I hope everybody else did. So thank you so much for joining in, and we're very glad that you took out time for us today. So
Wonderful to be here. It was a pleasure, Anku. Thanks to you and thanks to your entire team. I do wish you all the very best with this podcast.